So, up to last week, we covered off many more items in Excel, uh, specifically some plug and plays that we did down here. Now, we finished off the story about the company, the case company in a small town, by concluding with the super bonus. But then we looked at some of these metrics down here, things like a spread between the highest and lowest, the medians, the averages, and so on. And these are called plug and plays, right? Where you just put a function, a word, tell Excel the range that you're looking at from which cell to which cell, and it does something for you. So we spent some time talking about the uses of some of these metrics, how we could use it to validate the effectiveness of what we're doing or pinpoint issues or problems that you might be able to see within your data. What I'd like to do today is move to another sheet. So if you think about it, what we have in front of us right now is good work to calculate pay. And it worked. We were able to manage the numbers, see the effectiveness, etc. I want to move on with some projections into the future. Now, I could keep adding to this sheet on the right-hand side. I think that if you keep doing it, at some point it won't fit on an actual piece of paper. In Excel, the beauty is you don't have to. I mean, this is manageable, this is good. But down at the bottom, you've got an additional sheet down here, sheet 2. And by clicking the plus sign, you can have more and more sheets. You can have actually thousands of them. Now, when you have a sheet, you can right-click on it. You can delete it. You can rename it, move. You can make copies of it, change the color of it if you like this. You can even hide them. So when you have additional sheets, it could get daunting. I mean, if you had 800 sheets, for example, you won't be able to navigate it. So there is a way to have a blank sheet and put a menu on it, so a series of buttons that automatically take you to a specific sheet. And the idea might be that, let's say on sheet 1, the master sheet, you can call it master, you can have all basic employee data, their ID, their name, some identifiers, etc. And then in another sheet, you can do pay projections. In another sheet, you can do benefits. Other sheet would be health and safety records, training records, and so on. You can make it work quite well. Of course, the idea is to get a proper HRIS that we've been talking about in our lectures to do a lot of that management for you. But Excel is still a valuable tool to bring some of the data in to do some of that data management. So down at the bottom, I'm just going to delete sheet 3, and I do have sheet 2, right? So sheet 1 and sheet 2. Now I won't rename them right now. You can rename them later. But let me enlarge this, and I want to show you what I want to do. I want to leave sheet 1 as my master data, meaning my names are here, my employee names, their IDs, whatever might be there. But I want to make a reference from this sheet into another sheet. I don't want to copy and paste. And here's how you do it, okay? So I'm going to reference between multiple sheets. So let's start with the simple one in cell A1, okay? I'm going to press the equal sign. Leave it. Don't press enter. Don't do anything. Just leave it open. Go to sheet 1 where the information is, and I'm just going to click on the title. And when you do that, you'll get this sort of dotted line, dashed line around it. All you do is you press enter. Okay, fine. You could have copied and pasted. I get it, right? Now I'm going to go to A3. Have a look. Press equal sign. Leave it open. Don't do anything. Go to sheet 1 and click on the word employee. Right? See the dotted line? Press enter. Good. That's a reference. It's not a copy paste. It's a reference. Now I know that there's data that goes down to, let's say, row 9. See? I just copied it down. Now here's why we do it this way. And by the way, I'll just show you. If I highlight all of this, I can actually copy everything across to the right, and all those numbers come up. Now you obviously don't want all of them because they're already on the other sheet. So here's the reason we do a reference versus a copy paste, is that if I change anything in my master data, for example, Joe, then everything everywhere else on every other sheet that you refer to it will also change. So let's say I change Joe's name to Josephine. Okay, I change it in one place, it changes everywhere else. And that's the only way to do it. You're in fact creating a database. You are making references. I'll just change this back. And let's say I also did pay and units. Any changes here will automatically change things here. So now because we're doing projections, let me just put the title up first of all. I'll just do this. There we go. So over here, I want to grab onto some additional information from sheet 1, and we'll take 2020 total pay. Okay? Now copy that down. And sometimes the formatting comes over from the other sheet. Today it did not. So just highlight it. Oh, hang on, give me a second. I'm having trouble there. And change the decimals. Okay, so sometimes you do have to do the formatting. Now what I want to do is do 2021 pay, 2022 pay, and we'll do 2023 pay as well later. We're going to do some projections. Just to make it look good, I'll change this as well to pay. Now, in 2021, the year after, our people are suggesting that everybody get the same pay increase. Now, if you're in a unionized environment with the union, of course, it'll be the same for everybody. And it might not be fair, and we'll discuss that shortly. But we're going to say everybody gets 3% increase. So I'm going to show you the longest way to do that. Okay, I need you to know these two calculations. They're percent increase, percent decrease. We already did percent change, new minus old divided by old, on the previous sheet. Now, if you go shopping and you calculate tax, that's the same idea. If you go shopping and there's a discount, you calculate that. That's the same idea, but I need you to know these, okay? Let me show you the long way of doing it. Next year, we're going to increase pay by 3%. So it'll be last year times 3%. Okay, that's how you write 3%. Or, I mean, if you're not sure, you can do 3%. But then you have to add last year, right? So next year you'll get paid the same plus 3%, or principal plus interest. If you put $51,000 in a bank at 3% interest, I mean, you're lucky, but you want your $51,000 back plus 3% of it, and that's the answer. Now, the short way of doing it is simply to ask yourself, what am I starting with? That much. Now, that's all of it, right? What you're starting with is all of it. It's 100%. Now, what's 100% times 3%, or 100% plus 3%? 100% plus 3% is 103%. Or you can do 1.03. Now, you take your pick. However you are comfortable with it, there's probably 5 ways of doing it. I showed you the longest and the shortest way. I copied that down. Now, the year after, we're doing 2 years out now. Somehow, you talk to economists, you look at reports, you look at industry, and there's going to be something happening. We're going to ask people to take a pay cut. And as long as they agree to it for the good of the company, then it's fine. So we're going to ask everybody to take a 4.2% pay cut. Because they've done well all of these years, now they're just going to make a little sacrifice. So the way you do that, again, last year minus last year times 4.2%, or 4.2%. Got it? So we're going to take away 4.2% from last year. That's one way. Now, if you look at it, what's 100%? This is 100%, right? What's 100% minus 4.2%? It's 95.8%. If you feel comfortable with that, do it that way. I'm going to copy this down. And there we go. Now, let's think about this. Doing the same pay increase or decrease for everybody is, people do it. It's a very easy, simple way to do it. Some people think it's fair, equitable, nobody gets discriminated against. But in fact, it's an unfair system. Outside of a union, right? Union, you have no choice. The entire bargaining unit gets the same percent. But it's not fair because it's not recognizing that Sally is a higher producer than, let's say, Sam. There's no merit base to it. Skill-based, merit-based, performance-based. So the consultants for this company came back in 2022. Because, companies go into growth modes and then a few years go by and they want to make changes. And the consultant said, look, you have to react to what a younger generation wants, what society wants, what people think is fair and equitable. And fairness and equity to the newer generations is paramount, right? So you are now going to base your future pay on a performance system. So for the first time, Centra Inc. has introduced a performance system, and we'll call it a rating. Now, the consultant suggested a simple, because the HR department was small, a simple graphic rating scale. And graphic rating is simply when you choose from a list of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a scale of 1 to 5. 5, you are the best employee. 1, you are not the best employee. You're the lowest performer. And how you determine a 5 versus a 4 versus a 3, well, that's what the consultants do. There's a bit of psychometrics involved. There's engineering. You look at people, how they work, their attitudes, their attendance, the amount of training they took, their output, their rejects. There's a whole lot of factors that can go into it. And I'm hoping some of you in this class will actually take performance management, take it on as a specialty. As a consultant, I mean, you don't get hired to do it, but as a consultant, you can do it, or you'll be a generalist who specializes in it. And I think that's a pretty good place to be right now. A little bit of psychology involved as well. Now, whatever the rating is, make sure it's behaviorally anchored and properly documented. So when a manager chooses a 4 versus a 5, they should know exactly what the difference, the nuance, the minute similarities and differences between the two ratings are. Now I'm just going to type a few in here randomly. Let me just bold this. Let's see. So Joe got a 4, 3, 4, 5, and a 1. Now let's make it a 2. Okay? Just randomly. I chose a few. Now in 2023, we're going to determine pay based on the rating. The higher the rating, the more pay you will get. Okay? Now to do that, of course, you need some sort of a schedule or a table. So let me tell you the ratings. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You with me so far? Now, I'm actually even going to color code these for you so you can see them. Now bear with me because the mouse is a bit sticky today, but there we go. Okay. So these are my orange colors. And then, you know what? Let's do percent. We're used to doing percent. So if you're a high rating of 5, I think you should get a 4.9% increase. If you're 4, we'll give you 3.5%. And then if you're a 3, you're going to get very low amount, 2%. 1.1%, and let's make this 0.5%. Okay? I'll just fix these up for you. Let's make it 1 decimal. That's good. So let's color code this, and we'll make this, let's say, light blue. And we're going to use that number over here. I think you're almost getting the idea what we're trying to do. My job is to get that percentage over here. Okay? Now, normally how you would do this is you would say, okay, Joe got a rating of 4. Let's find the number 4 in this table and put 3.5% here. The next one, Pat, is a 3. We find the 3 and 2.0% here. Now, you've done this before. Let's say you travel on a train. You look at the zone you're going to, the price next to it. You go to a store. Sometimes there's a chart that shows you the discount based on the original price. And most tables that we look at, they're up and down. They're top to bottom, vertical, right? There are tables that go sideways, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you ever see those are horizontal. Change them to vertical, okay? It makes more sense. People like to see vertical. Now watch, I'm going to show this to you a couple of times, okay? This is the calculation. Joe gets a 3.5% increase, okay? Which is this number here. Times Joe's pay from last year, right? So if you multiply 3.5% by last year's pay, that's the amount of the increase. Joe will get a pay increase of $1,780. But remember, Joe also gets last year's pay. Right? Increases are based on last year's pay. So you have to add last year as well. So total pay will be $52,657, right? Now here's the problem. Do you see the J7 I'm referring to in this table? If I change that number, that's fine. But then for the next one, I have to manually go and find the number 3, and I have to click on it, right? And then do the math that way. The next one, 4, will be again here. J5, 5 will be down here. You can't do that. Like with 5 employees, it's not a problem. What if I gave you 5,000 employees to do this with? So what you need to do is get Excel to find that J7 for you automatically, right? Like what if I change this person's rating to a 5? You have to remember to go and change this to a J6. You're not going to remember that. I want Excel to automatically go find that. So we're going to replace this little thing called J6 here to something bigger. All right? Now let's just work with this. Nope, let me change the rating back. The function that we're going to use to look this up is called Vlookup. Okay? Now, by the way, I have another mini tutorial just for Vlookup. This is just our example here. Have a look at my other tutorial as well. I'll put it in the week 5 session. So the function is Vlookup. Pay attention. It's equal sign Vlookup bracket. That bracket will close at the end, just like every other function. Now the letter V stands for vertical, meaning the list you're looking at is up and down. It's vertical. Now inside the Vlookup, first thing you have to do is tell Excel what you're looking for. Excel's ready to look something up for you. It's saying, what do you want me to look for? And you click here and say, look for E5. Right? The number 4. Now we use E5 because the number 4 itself could change, but the cell won't. So look up E5, comma. Excel says, okay, I'm excited. I'm going to look for the number 4. Where should I be looking? Now you can't assume that Excel knows it's over here. Because to be honest, that table could be somewhere else. It could be on another sheet. It could be anywhere. You can move that table later on. It doesn't have to be there. But I have to tell Excel. So I'm going to highlight the entire table. You see? Got it? So I6 to J10. Then you press comma. Now, this is where it gets slightly tricky, but just bear with me. Excel says, okay, I found the number 4 in here. I found it. And whatever it is you're looking for, the number, the value, the letter, whatever it is, has to be in the first column. That's why I colored it orange, right? But when it finds it, Excel says, what number do you want back? Do you want the first number back, the number 4, or the second number back, the 3.5%? So you have to say you want the second number. If I said comma 1, it'll actually give you the number 4 back because it's the first number, but we want the second number. Now, just to be on the safe side, okay? Sometimes you don't have to do this, sometimes you do, and we can discuss later why you would. But you have to put another comma and the word false. Okay? Just do it. It's called syntax, just do it. And I can explain later, you'll understand why. It's sometimes in cases where you want to look for an absolute number, like the exact number 4. Or if you allow for, let's say, ratings of 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, does it kick up or kick down? Situations like that. But for right now, I just need you to put the comma in the word false. And look what I get. Now, I know you're seeing a 0, but remember, the answer is a percentage. So if I convert it to a percentage, I'm getting 3.5%, that number. See how big this thing is? That big thing right there represents that little number there. Now here's the cool part. Vlookup found it. Now you can do whatever you want with it. And the cool thing is this. If I change the employee's rating to a 5, it'll automatically pick up the number from next to 5. Likewise, if I go here and say 3.5% is too rich, let's make it 3.1%, it will change it over here. And it won't just do it for this. When you copy this down, it'll do it for every employee with that same rating, the number 4. That's the beauty of it. Okay, now let's have a look. I'm going to double click. I found the 3.5%. What do I want to do with it? So let's do our original calculation. You multiply it by last year plus last year, right? Remember that? Oh yeah, don't forget, change it back to $1 if you have to. There we go. So the person's pay next year is $52,657. Now here's the thing. As you're working on this table here, until these numbers are fixed, you don't want people looking at it because they might get excited and start telling other people. So, if there's people coming around your desk all the time, you don't want them to see this, that's okay. Look, this is what I would do. Look, if somebody's coming, you just highlight the I and the J at the top, right click and hide. Gone. Now, if you know the alphabet, you know that E, F, G, H, K, something's missing. So to unhide it, just highlight HK, right click, and unhide. Now later I can show you how to do a quick macro. So you'll have a button that says hide show. Let's say you're working away and you're working on your wedding budget or your party budget on the site. Hey, boss is coming, hide it. But you don't want to be doing this the whole time. Hide. It's a lot of steps. So simple macro can show you how to record that and just execute it very quickly. Okay? That's a side thing. Now, I want to get back to my Vlookup. This is super powerful, the Vlookup. Trust me, it saved me a lot of headaches and a lot of time. It saved my clients a lot of time. Now, one thing on the side I'll tell you is on your resume, somewhere in a special section called technology skills or software skills, you know, you're going to put Excel, make it stand out. You're going to, within Excel, outline Vlookup and pivots. I don't know why, but HR people looking at resumes love to hear Vlookup and pivots. I think because it shows that if you know a Vlookup, there's a whole lot of other stuff that you can do. Right? That's called construct validity. But there's one more problem with this. Look. Let's say I have 5,000 employees. Right? The idea is when I copy this down, it'll pick each of these numbers off here. I'm going to copy this down. Now we're lucky today because it's actually giving us NAs. Sometimes you won't even get an NA, right? You just get the wrong number. And in that case, you'll think it worked, but it didn't actually work. And I'm going to explain to you why. You see, Excel is powerful for one thing. Originally, when it was designed, it's called dynamic cell referencing. That is the single biggest power of Excel. Dynamic cell referencing. Now, the word dynamic means to move. So that in Excel, when you do something like this, see, we're referring to E5, D5, and I6 to J10, all of these things. When you copy, it will dynamically and proportionately change the relation. E5 will become E6, E7, E8, E9. D5 will become D6, D7, D8, D9. Right? You want that to happen. That's powerful. But look what happens. That's good. We're looking at this rating, that pay, and this box. See? This policy box. But look at the next one. This moves down, but the box also moves down. That's proportional. This also moves down. By the time you're at the end, it's almost completely off the grid. So I'm going to show you the opposite. Opposite of dynamic is called absolute. I'm just trying to delete these here. Oh, hang on. You know, let's just do this. There. So inside here, I want the E6 to change as I copy it down. I want the D5 to change as I copy it down. That's dynamic. But see this box here? I6 to J10? This? When you copy, that box should not move. It should stay exactly where it is. So we want to make that part absolute, opposite of dynamic. And the idea is you put some really strong glue in this corner, I6, and some strong glue in this corner, J10, or nail it in. Now in here, just find that I6 to J10. Find that box. It's right here. See this? So you highlight it, and we're going to put glue. On your keyboard, there's one button called F4. Press it. You get glue. Now look, it just got bigger. That's all. But you have a $I, $6, $J, $10. The $sign represents glue. Sticky, super powerful glue. Now, if you really stare at it, you know you put too much glue. Meaning you don't need to glue the I or the J, because when you copy down, the I and the J don't change. But you know what? Why not glue the heck out of it? You know what? Like, you don't want to be cheap. The glue is free. Just do it. I'm going to do that again. So to undo it, you just F4, F4, F4. Highlight this, which represents that box that you don't want to move. Press F4, and that will glue it down. Now look, I'm just going to copy. There we go. So now my first one refers to this cell, and that box. Look at the last one. these cells moved as they should, but the box did not, you see? Absolute cell referencing. Now I'm going to do one more, and I'm just going to show you the rule. Okay, I just want to repeat one rule for you in case you don't know why we did that. Let me just number these for you. Sorry. This will come in handy in a second. Hang on. Normally you wouldn't number these, but I will. So I'm going to call this allowance. Now I want to give, it's a new program we're introducing. Every employee gets an allowance, and it's an allowance they can use for a number of things. It's a flexible spending allowance. They could use it for training. They could use it for R&R if they want to take some extra time off. They could buy new stuff for their desk. And the allowance you get is based on your rating. Okay, so the higher the rating, the higher the allowance. Now I'm just going to make some numbers up. The highest raters are going to get $1,500. Right? I'll give you $850. I'll give you $500. So it's exponentially lower. $200, and here punishment $50, right? In fact, it should be 0, but that's okay. Let's make it look good, and you know what? I will change the colors for you as well. There we go. I don't know what color that is, but it is different. Okay. Now let's do a simple VLOOKUP here. VLOOKUP. Got it? Remember? I'm looking up this, comma, where? Here. So we highlight all of it. This, right? Comma. Now when you find the number 4 here, the orange one, do you want this first number back, the second number back, purple, or the third number back, green? We want the third because we're doing allowance. And then don't forget the word false at the end. And again, on your computer, try it without the comma false, see what you get. Right? It might work. But now, if I press enter, I will get $850, right? But don't forget, in every single VLOOKUP you ever do, you can do thousands of these. First of all, it pretty much looks the same, all right? They don't change much. But in every single VLOOKUP you do, highlight what is after the first comma up to the second comma. Highlight it. In every single VLOOKUP you ever do, highlight what is between the first and second commas and press F4. Got it? Now you can copy this down. Now, let me show you the power of this. Now, we only have 5 people here, but I'm going to do a sum here. Let me add this up. So in Excel, there's functions to do what we call goal seek or scenario builders, where if you want to hit a target, you do goal seek backwards, like algebra, x plus y equals z. Okay, let that one go. But here your boss said your total allowance budget is $5,000. Now you're only up to $3,900. So here's how you manipulate it. I have a total. And rather than, listen, you can change allowances by changing people's ratings up and down. But that's not right. Ratings are based on something different. But what you do is you go to your policy table where you don't know the numbers are right, and you start changing these around. So I'll make this a 400. See, the numbers are increasing. 750, I'm getting there. 1150. Yep, very close. 1550. Dead on, 5,000. Or as close as possible. So now your job, if your boss says get me to a certain level, equitably, fairly, your job now is to stare at the relative amount for each rating you would give and just manage these 5 numbers here. And it automatically picks out all the numbers here and changes the value for you. Okay? It's a very cool thing to have. So that's called VLOOKUP. I want you to do this, watch my video on VLOOKUP, separate video, small tutorial. And also I'm going to include another video on absolute cell referencing, because there's other ways you can use absolute cell referencing as well. Okay? So practice, please. Have a look. And I just have a couple smaller things to show you, and then we'll be done. Now I want you to look at this set of numbers here, rating, and ask yourself, if I asked you from pieces of paper to type in ratings for 5,000 people, is it possible you'll make a mistake? Yes, of course. And there's 2 kinds of mistakes. One is human error. The other one is just illegitimate number. Okay? So ask yourself, can I restrict these cells here where the rating can only be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Legitimate ratings. Or let's say you're doing hourly pay rate. Can you set it up so you can't type in less than $14.25 an hour or minimum wage? If you're doing hours of work, can you set it up so it won't let you put more than the maximum allowed hours of work? If you're putting in a serial number or an ID number, can you set it up so it only allows a certain sequence of numbers? Right? Or a date that's not before today. So these are called validations. They check. And sometimes you've gone on the internet to fill out a form and you type something in, it says, nope, it's not allowed. Like it's wrong format or something. Or even right down to it's a required field where you can't leave it blank. So it'll check for you. These are all called validations. Okay, let me show you how. And there is a separate tutorial for this. Okay, look. First of all, I'm going to validate these cells here. So let me highlight them. Now at the top, we're going to go from the Home tab over to the Data tab. I mean, we're actually leaving Home for the first time. I'm with you, don't worry. But you go to Data. And again, do not freak out about all this stuff. I mean, you look at this and you start questioning, oh my God, I don't know it. It's okay. Nobody showed you. Leave it. Go straight to what I'm telling you. Data validation. Do you see right in the middle? Click it. Now, right now, Excel allows anything in any cell in Excel, everything, any value, including blanks. Now, I'm going to restrict what goes in these cells by, well, it could be just a number or series of numbers, certain decimal places. It could be a list where you have to choose from my list, so you can't make a mistake. Like, for example, if you had a list of managers, if you choose from my list, you can't make a mistake in spelling, right? Maybe a date range, time range, how long the text is. So if you have an ID number that's 8 characters long, it has to be exactly 8. And you could even customize it by saying something like, hey, if you type in an employee ID number, it has to be letter, dash, number. That's later, okay? What we want to do is whole number today, or just the number, okay? And what I'm going to allow in these cells, you have to ask, is it greater than, less than, equal to, not, between? What is it? If it's minimum wage you're doing, it has to be greater than or equal to, right? So let's do between. And in my case, I'm allowing numbers that are between 1 and 5, right? How do you know? Look at the table. It's only allowing 1 to 5. So it's already set. Now I'm going to allow blanks, meaning you can leave one of these cells blank, but sometimes you want to uncheck this box, which means you cannot save the file. It will not let you save unless there's something in the box. So for example, if you're starting a new employee, the first item should be ID number, employee ID number. That should be required because you can't start an employee without an ID number. But remember, once you check that box, you can't save the file if anything's blank. Now, if a person makes a mistake, type in a 6 instead of a 5 or 0 instead of a 1, you want to give them an error alert. And I like the bright stop sign. And I'll just put in a little title, error, and a message. Value must be between 1 and 5. See policy A53. So I'm telling the user, hang on, you're making a mistake. It must be between 1 and 5. Double check. If you're still not sure, go see policy manual page A53. Click OK. See, nothing happened because all these numbers are valid. But let me change the first one by mistake. I typed in a 7. You see? Now, there is a sound, by the way, that pops up as well. It keeps telling you. Now, at some point, if a guy just keeps doing this, your clerk just keeps doing this, saying, what the heck's happening? It's like most people, they don't read the message. But at least it's not going to allow him to type in the wrong number, right? Now, if he types in a 3 instead of a 4 by mistake, there's other ways to check that as well. So that's called data validation. And I want to quickly show you one more thing. And that is called conditional formatting. Okay? So validation's a freebie, by the way, for your test. It will be on the test. And conditional formatting will also be a freebie for your test. So I'm going to go back to sheet 1. Now have a look. Conditional formatting is when you get Excel to do some of the visual work for you. Meaning, I'm looking at this list, I'm trying to spot ups, downs, in betweens, what's high, what's low. You get tired of that after a while, but if Excel were to change the colors based on what you tell it, meaning red is dangerous and green is really good, then when you walk in the morning and these numbers have shifted, you can easily say, okay, good, everything's green, good to go. It's an early warning system, okay? I do that with the grades for hundreds of students I have. In order for me to pay attention and give you customer service, manually to manage 200 people's marks would be hard for me to do anything more. But what I do in Excel is I have your names, all students' names. Next to it, I have columns, one for each mark for every assignment test that you guys have. So then I create a final mark column, and I do a calculation, an algorithm, to determine your final mark based on the weights. But I put in a predictive element to it. So generally, after your first test mark comes in, my model predicts your final mark. It's not that accurate, but it's okay. But as soon as a second mark comes in, it predicts it so accurately that I almost don't even need to look at your second test or any assignments. But I do, of course. So what happens is in Excel, it color codes that final mark. So after my prediction model kicks in, if your final mark is red, then it knows that my model's predicting that you're not going to pass the course. Which allows me, see, color coding allows me to then reach out to you via email in a personal, customized email, telling you that that's the case, or maybe give you a plan of what we can do. Now, if your final mark changes orange, orange is you're in the zone. My model says you can go either way. I'll still probably send you an email saying, hang on, this is what I found, be careful. What's your motivation for the grade? And then what can you do to ensure the pass so you're not wasting your resources and your money? And if you're green, green means I don't even have to contact you because my model says you will pass. Now, of course, unless you goof up. So I never release that information because it could influence you, but I do for people who I'm concerned about. Now imagine if Excel didn't help me with that. There's no way I could get to 200 people on a personal level. Let me show you. I'm going to do percent change here. Okay? I'm going to highlight these. Just the cells I want to conditionally format. And I'm going to go to the top, to Home tab. And in the middle, there's a button called Conditional Formatting. Now, when you go there, there's all sorts of different options. And I'll tell you, I don't like these automatic ones because to me, they're stupid. Like, who knows these shades of colors, right? You can try them. You can go to More Rules, later even Clear Rules, and Manage Rules if you wanted to delete them. But I don't do New Rule because it's an extra step. I go to Highlight Cells Rules, right? So highlight the cells first, Conditional Formatting, Highlight Cells Rules, and then go to More Rules down here. Now, ignore the top part. Sometimes you see something like this and you don't know what to choose. Well, you know what? Look, if you don't know, let Excel choose for you. Leave it. But down here in the middle, this is important. I'm going to say, okay, I want you to format the cell, change the color. If what? If the cell is, let's say, less than. So what's danger? Percent change would be less than 0%. Less than 0 would be a negative number, right? So this is danger. Now, I have to format, and I'm going to go to fill because fill is nice and bright. Now, color is red if it's dangerous, right? I think that's universal. Red is bad in business. It's a danger color. When you're driving, red means, stop. Funny though, red is also an auspicious color, lucky color in many cultures, right? We'll choose red. Now, if you don't know the difference between red and the next color, relax. Just pick 3 different colors, right? So if the cell is less than 0%, change it to red. And it will automatically pick these out and change it to red. Now I'll do the second one. So keep these highlighted. Conditional Formatting, Highlight Cells Rules, More Rules. Now let's do between. So I'm looking for that kind of safe zone. So if your number is between 0%, which includes exactly 0, and let's say 5%, which means you're going to be okay, but you could go either way. You can still possibly sue me. Then I'll format it for orange. Click OK and OK. And I'll do the last one. If the cell is greater than 5%, that means you're good to go. My model says you're not going to do anything. You're happy that you met the target. Make it green. You see? So I'm only using 3 different colors. In Excel, the newer versions, you can do hundreds or thousands of different of these. Not hundreds or thousands, hundreds and thousands. Okay? The problem is a human can't differentiate more than about 7 or 8 shades readily. So stick to something reasonable, right? 3 or 4 colors. Now, if these percents were to change, let's say something were to happen and automatically I made this person's pay 90,000, then look, that color changes automatically. So when you set this up, and let's say data's coming in every night, so next day in the morning you go here and you've got some reds and oranges and greens, you know you have to deal with the reds first, make them into at least oranges, and then deal with your oranges to make them into green. And you do things in HR. You use resources, you do programs, initiatives. Next day you walk in, everything's a green. And it's green, sustained for days and days and weeks. You say, good, I'm fine-tuned. Then you raise your standard or benchmark. And then go back, make things into oranges, purposefully. Then throw resources that way to make everything into green. It could be training, it could be hiring new people, whatever. But it's a great way to see progress as well. So I want you to practice with conditional formatting. Have a look. Really nice thing to have. And we'll see you in the next session.